Getting famous or
I didn't
something?
even know who I am.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Okay.
All right, guys. Good evening. Let's go ahead and get the class started. Nick is going to take a few minutes. He's going to go over the homework. So please give some attention, and then we'll start the class.
Let's just do this. All right. Before I go over homework, does everybody know where to find homework instructions, all that stuff? Yeah. Does anybody not know? So you have your GitHub or GitLab access, rather, right? So if we go into GitLab, you'll either come to a page like this, or you will probably come to the very root. And if you do, you essentially, you guys will probably only just have one. So you will, I think, oops, wrong one. There we go. I had like 4, I had to delete all of them. So once you click on your project, each folder in here will be separated by week. So week 1, HTML, Git, CSS, week 2, CSS, Bootstrap, and so forth. So for week 1 homework, it'll be under the 01 folder. It'll be under homework instructions, and also this is where we upload different activities, supplemental items, and so forth. So go into homework and instructions. And so for homework 1, we have 2 assignments. You only have to do one of them. So we have an easier homework assignment and a recommended. And if we click on either one, we'll essentially have a screenshot of what we want it to look like. And then also we will have a list of instructions for you guys to essentially follow specifications for how everything's supposed to look and so forth. So does that make sense? Yes.
Is there a way to copy that somewhere so that you can flip back and forth when you're trying to do the assignment and you're looking at what the easier one is?
You click on
Download it?
Yeah, you can download it. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. Okay. So yeah. So this is where pretty much all your homework is going to sit, and this is how all the instructions are going to look. Some of them will have screenshots. Some of them will not. And these are pretty specific instructions, so I would follow it to the dot. That's what I would recommend for you guys. Again, try to make it look as close as you can to, the end result. However, do your best, and don't be afraid to, add a little flair, change the colors if you guys want. So it's all up to you. So essentially, to start off, this is the easier homework assignment. So essentially what we're doing here is we're basically creating a skeleton, if you will. So you can see that, we have a header, we have a, like a navigation area. We have a section, an aside, and a footer. Keep in mind that section, aside, header, footer, these are mainly for semantics. As Daniel was saying earlier last week, that it's more for semantics. A section and a div are nearly identical. They essentially do the exact same thing. Yeah, so we'll have a couple of nested items in here as well. So you can see that we have a section. Within the section, we have the article, and then we have 2 other containers, if you will. one with a P tag, one with bold text, different colors, background, and so forth. So does that make sense? Anyone have any questions on that? Okay. And then the recommended homework assignment. So this one is a bit more challenging. So instead of a skeleton, we're actually going to try and build out, something something of a site. So essentially, we have a header or a navigation menu, if you will. So we have essentially, your name, header, 3 links for an about page, a portfolio page, and a contact page. So essentially, this will be the about page. We'll have a header, an image, remember, floating. So this is how we move or shift images, rather. And then, we have some text surrounding that, and it's sitting in its own container. We also have a footer on the bottom. Yeah, again, don't be afraid to change the colors if you want. It doesn't need to be identical. What we're looking for is making sure that you guys are, essentially following, some kind of a layout, some kind of a standard layout for your homework. The second page is the portfolio, and as you can see, it's pretty similar to the about page. So we have essentially a container where all of the content is sitting inside, except insteed of text, we have a bunch of images, and each image has essentially a banner around it. So again, content, images inside. Yes?
Do you give us those images?
It can be any image you want. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it doesn't have to be identical.
Okay.
It can be, random images. I think there's a list of, I'll see if I can find it. There's actually a site that you can go to that'll just give you random images of a particular size. So each time you click on it, it'll give you a new image. So, is it? Yeah. Yeah, and there's also a URL where if you request an image, it gives you a different one each time. So yeah, there's a bunch of different resources like that.
So this page is going to eventually evolve. By the time you get to the end of the class, you would be updating your projects and assignments and whatever you want to see, and then when you send your resume, you can include this link over there.
Yeah, that's a good point. So think of these images, at least for this homework assignment right now, they're just placeholders. As Daniel was saying, eventually as you guys start turning in more and more homework assignments, and as you guys deploy your sites to a resource that's called Heroku that we'll be using. So you'll be replacing these with your actual projects so that they're clickable. If you click on it, it'll shoot you over to the project and so forth. So, and then the last page on this is the contact page. Again, anybody see a pattern? Yeah. Okay. So again, everything's uniform. Everything looks structured and in a layout. So that's what we're looking for here. And again, we have the same container, all of the content inside. Each one has a header and so forth. The contact page has a couple of input boxes. This does not need to work. Sending emails is, a little bit of a beast in itself without this. But these do not need to work. They just need to be there. Need to be able to type some stuff in and so forth. So yeah, that's pretty much that in a nutshell. Any questions?
When you're saying we should be able to type in, do you mean like we should be able to put like the John Smith in there?
Yeah. So these are just inputs. They don't necessarily do anything, or they don't work. Yeah, you just need to be able to have inputs, to type some stuff in there. So, one big thing that you guys do not need to worry about for this homework assignment. So this does not need to be responsive. So we will get to that starting, this week. We'll start learning about CSS and Bootstrap and responsive websites this week. So for homework 1, this does not need to be responsive. So what's that?
No, I shouldn't do it.
Yeah. So, does that make sense? It does not need to be responsive. If you look in the instructions, there are a lot of details and requirements for size of different HTML elements, so just keep that in mind. And sometimes the numbers that they give you don't quite line up very well, so feel free to play with with the widths, the heights and so forth. So yeah. So any questions on the homework? Yes.
What's a standard like size, just for?
I mean, 1024 is pretty standard.
What?
Well, height is, I mean, it's unknown. I mean, you can have a height, but it doesn't make sense because content goes from top to bottom, right? So the longer the page is, you're just going to scroll. So, but yeah, I think in the instructions it says to make this 960, I believe. So again, feel free to play with the widths if you want. See what looks best to you. I saw another hand up.
Yeah.
Yes.
So going over the instructions, so the portfolio one folder, and then we're supposed to create connections to the other folders, documents, and you want us to, is that something we have to do, or we can just organize it our way? So it says the HTML documents, index, contact, and portfolio.
Yeah, that's
and then a folder called assets.
Yes.
right, that's a standard way to do it.
So that's how we need to do it.
Yes,
So
I would
Yes.
say do it in that way because that's a good practice to do it. Yes.
So it'll look similar to this.
Mhm.
So you see we have our root directory, which is most likely going to be your repository, right? And we have 3 HTML files and an assets folder. So don't worry about this bonus. We just need the assets folder and 3 HTML files in there. So that's what it should look like.
And so you're basically page by itself.
Yes.
So that's what it's for.
Yeah,
And then
so
the
one-
assets is for pictures?
Assets, yeah, can be for pictures, for CSS, yeah.
Also, for it.
Yeah.
To expand the
Yeah.
assets, the CSS goes inside your assets.
Yeah, so, and you'll see that we have,
Yeah.
Is that, did you post this? Screenshot or something?
yeah, I mean,
It's in the instructions. I think.
it should be in the instructions,
Not
so,
the screenshot, but the layout of the folders is there in the instructions.
yeah, think of assets as, where you have your styling files, your images, eventually we'll get, to JavaScript and stuff like that, so assets, can be more than one item, and it's always nice that we have a folder structure within assets to keep everything organized, right? So we don't want CSS files with JavaScript with, with a bunch of other files, images, and so forth. So we want them in their own respective folders. So you can name this, whatever you want, but in terms of like a standard, it's always nice or it's always good to name this root folder assets, and then everything inside that. You can, instead of CSS, you can call it styles, or instead of images, you can call it pictures. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as you file, or as long as you follow a standard, folder structure. That's what we're looking for, just to make it easier for you to be able to reference all those files. So, okay. Any other questions?
Yeah. So I'm going to look like where the homework is, like following the written slide.
Okay.
But whenever I go to my GitLab, it does not show any
In your project, you shouldn't have any project in GitLab.
Yeah, you shouldn't have any projects. If you,
GitLab. Are you talking about GitHub?
So, no, so when you go here to this page right here, when I go to my GitLab without clicking the link to this page, there's nowhere to go.
so if what's the URL up top? It should be ua.bootcampcontent.com, right?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah,
All right, so you get to a page like this with something in here. Oh no, so you have to go to ua.bootcampcontent.com. So if you just go to gitlab.com, so it's a little bit different. So I believe the U of A has their own, kind of GitLab site, if you will. Not their own, but it's through GitLab, but the URL is different. Yes. Yeah, so it needs to be ua.bootcampcontent.com. Yeah, not just gitlab.com. Okay, cool. Good. Okay. Any other questions? Everybody good? Fair enough.
Internet? Yes.
All right. Oops. Close this. All right. So let's go ahead and kick off week 2. Please go ahead and come to a stopping point. Close your laptops. We still have a. We keep saying this. We still have a lot to do. So. All right. Let's see. Links are there. Everything looks good. All right. Good evening, guys. Let's go ahead and see what we are going to be doing. Welcome to week 2. So how was week 1? How was Saturday? Was it crazy as I said, or was it not?
It was interesting.
It was interesting?
The
Yes.
only thing I forgot was to bring lunch.
Okay.
Yeah, that was not aware that we have a 40-hour, like 40-minute period.
Oh, okay.
I was like,
Oh, okay. Yeah, so there's usually a break of 45 minutes on Saturdays. I start at noon, goes up to 12:45. That's what I usually do. All right. What about the lessons? Week 1, kind of crazy. Yeah.
I think it's like small and yeah, I was like on the floor.
Right. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, when you got used to this, then yeah, it was just
Yeah, and then like it's so small and intimate, like
Yeah.
you know, some faces, and then you come in and it's like,
yeah.
and then you're already intimidated because you don't.
Hopefully you guys get used to it, because that's how it's going to be for the next 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was that?
Who's this?
What?
I'm like, who is this guy?
We're all
Oh,
to
the
see you
teacher.
and this.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's going to be alternate Saturday. I thought I'd made it clear on Thursday, but if not, I'm sorry. Yeah, it looks like, see, even with closed laptops, people are not paying attention. Imagine.
And then that was
Yeah.
different
Oh,
too.
okay, thank
We
you.
always have our laptops open so we could Slack questions.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that. That's why a lot of people are like, oh, I want to take notes. Guys, I get it. But if it's open, I know people are slacking. I see people smiling. I'm sure they're not concentrating. But I can see everything from here. Then I ask a question. They're like, what? Oh, yeah. Okay. So you guys are here. You spend so much time, money. Why not just be here? I know it's a long class, 3-hour class. If you are here, just be here, right? The other thing is, and as we progress, we get into a couple of months, you will see I'm going to be lax, because the lessons, I get it. You guys will be more mature, more understanding. So I kind of want to give the responsibility to you. But for now, since it's initial stages, I see everybody needs a lot more attention. So that's why I kind of follow that. Okay, that's good. Good feedback from my side. I'm seeing. Definitely from my previous cohorts, this class is more talkative. By talkative, I mean I see the Slack messages, I see questions. That's good. Keep it coming. I just hope keep that coming throughout the cohort. It's a 6 months. People start strong, and I've seen people kind of get burned out. So you have to divide your energy that last 6 months, right? Don't stress. People come really strong. HTML, CSS. By the time they get to JavaScript, Node.js, that's it. So I understand, but those are the more difficult. I know right now CSS seems crazy. By the time you guys are doing your first project, you would be like, oh, CSS HTML seems easy versus what we are doing right now. Okay, it gets difficult. So good, keep on that Slack conversation. The only thing about Slack is. I know it's kind of difficult to get used to if you're not using it, or if this is the first time you're using it. There's a thread option. So if you post a question, if you just reply, there's a thread option. You will see like a message button below something like this. Let me show you. So, oh no, this is just my drawing. So it looks like something like this. So if you use that to reply this thread. So all your all your answers would just be over here. You will see me replying to people, and everybody I would be just replying to these threads, so that when somebody has they want to see what was the answer, they can just open the thread and everything will be there. Yes. Do you have a question, Dante? Oh, okay. Let me go ahead and remove this before. There you go. Okay. So you guys are working. You guys are doing activities. I see. You guys are already on the homework. A warning about homework is, if you notice now, the homework is always going to be you will study something and then you will do homework. So this week we will be studying something different that is not related to your current homework, and that's going to be the case. Students kind of spend a lot of time in homework and they kind of forget about the current lessons, but you guys have to balance both of those somehow. I don't know how. So I would recommend 45% of your time spent on homework, but the rest of your 35% on the current class and activities, whatever the current this week activities we are going to be doing, and then the 20%, remaining 20%, kind of be bundled together. If you want to read something, you want to go through the PowerPoint presentations, you want to learn more about the topic, look into W3 schools, spend that time. But this time, if you see, is still 55%, so more than half of the time, please work on the current week also, right? Again, as I was saying, people tend to spend a lot of time over there because they are trying to submit a homework. They kind of forget about this. This is going to come handy when you do the next homework, and then people are struggling to go back. And again, as I said, it's going to be the case throughout. You are always going to study something and do the homework. All right, so it's always kind of behind. Okay. Yes.
I noticed that future homeworks are due on Thursdays.
Yeah, it kind of varies, and I'm not the one who's setting the dates. It's how the boot camp is. I'm the messenger, so I'm not sure what the schedule, but you still have time. So on Saturday, after Saturday, you still have like a week and a half to complete that. Right? It's due on the next Tuesday, not the following Tuesday. You still have week and a Tuesday.
The teacher on Saturday confused us when they said that the first assignment was due on Thursday. When you said it was due on Saturday, all of our faces just went like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean that moves up?
Oh, okay. So the best thing is check the boot camp, and whatever that date is, whatever it says, that's the one we are following. Okay? And if I make a mistake, please let me know that the assignment is due on a different date. It can happen. Yeah. Right. Oops. I already talked about the homework. Please submit something. Don't get an I, remember. Please do submit something. Work with your TAs if you have questions. I'm going to try to complete this class if I can a little bit early today, so I can give you some time back. You guys can sit in the class and do the homework. But let's see how far we get. Oh, come on. What am I doing? All right. Class hours, you already know this. GitLab. I know people are watching the videos. I try to diligently go ahead and try to upload them as soon as I can. So the videos are there. You guys can go back and review them. Okay? Or any questions before we begin? Yes.
Is there a way to pull those videos like we do the rest of the assignments, or do we have to just go in one by one?
I haven't tried. Is there not a download thing? If you click the video, it opens a new window. Try right click and download. Yeah, I haven't tried it.
So if we do get our homework done early before the due date, we can submit it
Oh, yeah.
for grading, and
Yeah.
then we could get a chance to like redo it before the due date, resubmit it before the due date.
Yeah, work with it. It should be okay. Yeah. They're pretty nice. Okay. All right. So quickly, I'm going to briefly go over what you guys did previous week. We started with the full stack development in our intro. This is the tech stack that we are learning in this class. Tech stack means when you go out, people would be asking, what tech stack do you work in? So basically, they're trying to understand what programming languages are you working on. Okay. So in this class, we are working on MERN tech stack. We will be learning M is for MongoDB, E stands for Express, kind of backend server. R is React.js, and N is Node.js. Okay, so these are this is the tech stack. By the end of the 6 months, you will be familiar with all of these, right? But to get to this, we have to have our foundation. That's where HTML, CSS, JavaScript comes in. So eventually you're going to get to this. All right. You will also hear a mean stack, MEAN. A over there stands for AngularJS. That's kind of competitor for React.js. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but we won't be looking into that. We'll be working on React. Okay.
What is the E stand for?
Express.js is a Node.js library for backend server. Huh?
Yeah.
MongoDB. It's a NoSQL database. All right. Next, we looked at the console, terminal, and git bash. All right. You guys remember all those commands we'll be using. Now you see the use of those when you're working with GitHub. You know, instead of going back and forth, you can use a terminal for all those commands, make directories, create files. All right. We looked at that. Then we looked at HTML. All right. HTML is the first of the 3 languages of web development. Again, your browser only understands 3 languages: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It doesn't know React, it doesn't know Express, it doesn't know Node.js, it doesn't know any of those. Okay, we'll see how we are fooling the browser to understand that, how we are hacking through it, but your browser only understands 3 languages. That's why when you go out in the industry, people are more concentrated on these 3 things, and everything else is kind of bonus if you know those. Okay, especially JavaScript. All right, we looked into GitHub. All right, everybody kind of gets the concept, right? Pulling, pushing, the advantages, code conflicts, and version control. Those are the main 2 advantages of GitHub. All right, it helps with version control. It has a history, and then it helps with any conflicts. Okay.
Are we doing it in Poland?
Yeah, from GitLab, if you do a poll, you'll get all the assignments and all these things.
Okay.
Yeah. So GitLab, you will be pulling. When you go into your project, when you're working on your team, somebody else will push the code and you're going to pull that code. So at this point, you are only pushing because you are working on individual assignments. Yeah, I don't see a pull happening right now.
So
But
we
Git,
will push to get our assignments to you for.
it will just be a push. There won't be any pulls. Pull is you are downloading something. Since it's your own repository, you're actually not downloading anything from your own.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Then we looked at what happened here. Then we looked at CSS. All right. What are the 3 ways you can write CSS in your code? There are 3 ways you can start.
An external style sheet,
External style sheet
header in the head,
in the head.
and then
So excellent. So you can have a tag. All right, and in your tag attributes, you can use the style attribute. All right, and then write your CSS. That's the first way. The second way was you can have a style tag in your head, and then you can write all your CSS. And the third is external. All right. From standard perspective, this is the best way to do it. When I write my code, if I'm writing my HTML code, I just want HTML code in that file. I don't want CSS. I don't want JavaScript. All right, there's a way. So that's why we separate those out. This is probably the worst way. Don't write this code, please. All right. When somebody gives me code review and they have this, it's all automatically rejected. You see the problem? It works, but the thing is when you're reading, when you're trying to debug that why is this color changing, you're like, I don't know where this is, especially if the file is like 100 lines long, 200 lines long, it's kind of difficult to debug this. All right? Yes?
So if there's just one instance of that in the current homework,
that's how it begins. That is exactly how it begins. I'm telling you, I've heard every. That's how it begins. It's just this one thing, and before you know, everything is there. It's okay for your assignments, but I'm telling you again, this is just a recommendation. You can submit it as you have, but in the long term, this is what you guys need to achieve. And that's the best practice. Right now, it will work, but when you're working with somebody else is doing a code review, it's kind of very hard to accept this. All right. So that's why what I was saying, when you write your JavaScript for short term and everything, you will see me writing some code quickly to show you guys. It might be embedded over here, But if you look at the assignments or if you're doing a project, that's a better way to keep your HTML file separate, keep your CSS separate, keep your JavaScript separate. Okay? Just write HTML in your HTML file, CSS in your CSS file. Okay, that's a good practice. All right. What else? You guys saw the selectors in CSS. You saw 3 kind of selectors. All right. First one was the element, so you can style the element, like for your H1s and Ps. All right. So I can have a H1 element and style that, or a P element, right? This is selector element. Okay. So what happens in this case is if you style H1, every H1 tag that you use in HTML is going to have this CSS. Okay. If you style a P like this, every P in your code is going to have that same style. All right. It works, but again, not preferred unless you really are, that is your intention. Usually the intention is not that I don't want all my H1s. I might have like a specific H1s that I want to do it. So that's the case. Then we go into class selectors. All right. In class is you define your custom. You will say dot heading 1. Okay. And then you define your CSS. All right. The dot is the custom one. And now I can use this heading in my code, in my HTML code. I can say h1, and then I can say class is equal to heading 1, whatever. Okay. The advantage of this is if I want this heading 1 somewhere else, right? If I have like 5 h1s, I only need this to be in like 3 of them. It's kind of easy. I can use this somewhere else. Okay, kind of reusability. All right, we'll be using seeing a lot of stuff where we want to write as less code as we want. All right, we want to be lazy programmers. We want to like minimum lines, and then I can get what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, and the third way was the ID. It's very, very specific. That there's only a specific one element that has a special case that is going to have this. Nobody else in my whole HTML is going to have that property. If that's the case, then I want to use the ID. Okay? Hash ID. Sorry. ID.
Oh, okay.
Right? And then you will. How do we define in our HTML tag? We'll use the ID attribute, and we'll give this an ID. Okay? Most common ones are class. You will see this way of writing a lot. All right? I've seen ID extremely rarely, because there's rarely a case that there's so specific element that you wanted, but it happens. But the option is there. These ones, the element selectors, people try to avoid it because I said if you style one of this, everything in your code is going to be styled. All right, and usually that's not what we're looking for. But if you are looking at your assignments, this still might work because there are only specific sections. Okay. All right. Let's see. All right, then you guys looked at the flow concept on your on the Saturday class. Your elements kind of flow from your right to left. Oh no, left to right. All right, and then there are 2 kind of elements: block and inline. Block are the HTML elements that take up the whole space, horizontal space, and inline ones are the nicer ones who kind of play along, like your span tag. You can put in and they will kind of take up only the space that is required. All right. At times we need those block ones, and at times we don't. All right. Yes.
So when you do inline block, what's the difference between inline block and
So are you saying when you set the property?
yeah.
Yeah. So you are telling the element that, you know, even though it's inline, make it block. So take up the whole space. Don't let anybody else take it, anything. That's what the option is. Okay. You kind of force some of those. Okay. With the flow concept, you guys looked at the box model. This is true for every HTML element. All right. This is your HTML element. Then it is surrounded by padding. Padding, what I like to compare padding is my comfort zone. All right. This is my comfort zone, and I can expand and contract within my comfort zone. All right. Versus margin. Margin is my personal space. Margin is what is the personal space versus the next element. All right. If I want to increase the personal space, I'm going to use a margin. All right. If I want to stay within my borders and my boundary, I want to increase my comfort zone, I'm going to work on the padding. All right. That's how I try to understand. And border is just a border around it. All right. And you have all of these properties available to you in CSS. You can expand the border. You can make the value less. You can increase the padding, decrease the padding. You can increase the margin, which is the distance between two elements. Okay. Oh. Too far. All right. Probably one of the more complicated ones. You guys saw the positioning. Starting with static. Static is your regular positioning. Nothing happens. It's the regular way you would put any HTML element over here. Okay. Then we saw relative. Relative is kind of nudging. If you want this element to be nudged towards a little bit towards the right, you will use the relative. If you want this element to be kind of nudged towards the left, kind of move the position horizontally, you're going to use the relative positioning. All right. You will say relative left or right. Okay, there's no top and bottom. That's your relative. So you're nudging the element from the sides. Okay, fixed is, as I said, it's fixed. You give it a fix and it's going to go ahead and put that element versus the viewport. The window, the Chrome browser or any browser window, we call that viewport. If you're using fixed positioning, it's going to find the position inside your viewport, all right, inside your browser. Let's suppose if you say 10, 20, like give a coordinate, it's going to go ahead and place itself versus the viewport, whatever it is available. Right? Absolute is kind of fixed, it's kind of related to fixed. The only thing is it takes up with respect to the parent. All right? Fixed is with respect to your window. Absolute is with respect to the element it resides in. Okay, if I have a section tag, and then I have another section tag, which is kind of your assignment, you will see. You want to place this section somewhere relative to this. That's where you will use the absolute position. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay. So some of the materials, you guys have already looked at W3 schools. It's really, really good. Please go ahead, look at those floating, look at the positioning. They have really good examples. You can just run it. You don't even have to type any code. Just do a try. It opens up a nice coding window. You can give it a try. CSS Stack Overflow is another good one. And you can find some solutions like, oh, I'm stuck with this. Kind of type, Google it. Probably the first few links you will see are from Stack Overflow. All right. The other ones is CSS tricks. That's I haven't used it, but I've seen quite a few links. MDN is like the official documentation for HTML and CSS. But since it is official, sometimes I've seen it's kind of hard to understand because they use the really technical terms and like official. This is the format, and this is how you do it. But this is like the more official one. All right. But I've directed a lot of people to W3 schools. I think that's probably the best site to start when you are starting to write HTML and CSS. All right. All right. So this was recap in like 10 minutes. Everything you guys did in the first week. You guys have any general questions before we kick off week 2? Yes, Matt.
Is there a way to float center?
Float what?
In the center, like have text on both sides of it?
Float center. I think there's only two properties: float left and right. There's actually not like a center one. You can play around with it, like use a relative and nudge it from both sides. But there's no like a direct link. Yeah, I don't think so. We'll have to kind of play around. Yeah. So I have to work with like kind of margins. Floating is only left and right.
Would that get the text you don't want to go far? I'm not talking about this position, but you have text floating around in the pie instead of just directly.
So yeah, you want the text to be centered, right?
No,
Is that what you're saying?
So you got a picture here, and then you got text that stops and goes on the other side of it.
Oh, interesting. So the picture is in the middle, then you have text, then text, then text, then text. Interesting.
I guess you could put that over
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah. There's a
It's not very it's not very user friendly.
right.
We're developer friendly at that.
That's why I was like,
Right.
then at least, you know, we're
Yes, right.
Really.
you do the margin, you have to run it. Put the margin
Right. Yep. I'll show you one more time how to do it. But everything is being referenced. HTML is always going to be the starting point. Even when we go to JavaScript, you have to mention the starting point is always going to be HTML. From there, you have to link your CSS. From there, you have to. Yeah. Yes, done.
So when you have like an asterisk and then you have the CSS, then you have box sizing and border box.
Mark?
What does that do?
What was the mark?
Just the asterisk.
Okay.
And then start the CSS box sizing and border box.
I didn't get the last word. Mark?
So the box sizing would be the first part, and you have the colon and it says border box. What would that be?
Okay. So there's a concept of flexbox. It's kind of we're getting into that, and we'll see. It might be this week or there, but there's a concept for flexbox and box. You saw that box model, so that kind of carries over. So what they're saying is that everything is surrounded by a box, and then you're playing around with those properties. Yeah, we can look into this more detail, but the high-level concept you have to keep in mind the box model. That's what's kind of targeting. Now those are like more technical ones, but from the concept wise, that's what they are targeting. Okay. Yes, Christine.
Padding versus margin. Can you do that one again?
Yeah, so padding, as I say, is your personal, your comfort zone. So when you increase the padding, your boundary remains the same within the boundary you're expanding or collapsing. Margin is how much distance you want next to your neighbor for the next element. All right? How much distance or how much pixels, how much percentage you want next to your element. All right? Let me see what is like. Okay, before you get it now, CSS is you guys would have we have certain boundary like when you go to JavaScript you will see how there's a specific syntax. CSS also has that syntax, but CSS I feel like is a lot more experimental. You will see when you submit your assignments, everybody will have a different way, but to achieve the same thing. That happens a lot. I've seen more with CSS. Everybody they play around with the properties. So I would highly recommend experiment, try a few things and see if that works. What I've seen in the assignments, everybody has a different way, but in the end you will get to the same screen, but it won't be the same way everybody is getting to it. All right? All right. So let's see what we are going to look at today. So this thing I've already kind of mentioned in the previous week, and then you guys are going to be working on the assignment also. You guys already seen this one. Remember the div tags versus the sections. All right. So as Nick was also mentioning, these tags are new to HTML. I can go back. Okay. So your header tag, nav tag, section, aside, article, and footer. These are new to HTML5. They did not exist before. There was only one tag for all of these in the previous version, and that was the div tag. That was it. So what happened was div tag can kind of get confusing, especially for SEO, search engine optimizations. When Google looks at your site, tries to find the content, it has to parse through a lot of stuff, try to figure out if your website is actually relevant to the search results. So this was kind of introduced in HTML5. These are called semantic tags, right? What it means is it's more related to the language, like header. When I see a header, I can say, okay, it's top of my screen. That's what header is. When I see a nav, this is a navigation bar. You see in your assignment, there's about, contact, and blah, blah, blah. That's called a navigation bar. So anything I'm doing something related to the navigation bar, I'm going to use the nav tag and put all the code inside it. Yes?
Do any of these have like predefined existing formatting applied to the tags, or all kind of
There's a little bit difference if you type in section versus div. The fonts kind of a little bit changed, but it's not like a huge difference. Behind the scenes, they all are still div tags. They don't add anything extra. Formatting, everything you still have to do it. As I was saying, these are only semantic. These are more human readable. That when I see your code and I see a header versus a footer, I can imagine, okay, on the footer you're putting copyright and blah, blah, blah. On the header you're putting a heading. That's all it does.
So those are just different types.
Different types. That's it.
So if someone hacked the page, it would be like, oh, this
No.
is this is
Yeah.
what I know.
Yeah, so you can write the whole assignment just using div tags. Nothing is going to happen. It'll still work. But these are kind of new properties that are introduced in HTML5. And as developers, we are being encouraged to use it for the same reason, is that it kind of is human readable. When somebody else is looking at your code, they don't have to worry about if your header, they will look at the div tags and kind of figure out if this is the header or not, if you guys are using it correctly. You can totally use a header and put in the footer code. Will it work? It will work. The HTML is not going to complete. It will render. It will put up on the top your footer. It will still work. But that's not the right way.
Infuriate anyone else.
Yeah. Anybody looks at your code and sees your footer is basically your header.
So you could look like you're going through like download, you go through your code then and replace div with
Yeah. Yeah. That will still work.
we can clean it out.
Yep. Exactly.
Do the current website building tools use this new invention?
Like current building tools, like what? Okay. Here's the interesting thing. W3 schools, if you look at the HTML behind it, they're still using div tags. So it's kind of, yeah, they're still using div tags. Yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of new thing. You have to get into that more, especially if you're making a new website. It's kind of recommended. But if you have something from previous careers, it kind of takes time and money to shift towards that code. But these are some like good practices that are good to know. Some of the features, they are already there, so why not, if you're starting new, start in the good practice.
When somebody goes on Wix and builds their site
Oh.
is it like using
I'm not sure. We'll have to see. I'm not sure if this will generate this code or not. Yeah.
I think it's like I use WordPress a lot.
Okay.
WordPress is, the pretty ones just divs.
All divs? Yeah.
Yeah. And when
Right.
you really look at the code, it's just a bunch of
Yeah,
divs.
that was if you look at the code, it's all like divs. Everything is a div. Div is probably the most popular tag ever used. Right? So for that they use these things. Sections, article, aside, if you have a side menu, kind of those things. Alright? Again, more semantic. I think the next slides, this is the W3 schools. Now, which one are you supposed to use? Again, it depends on the organization, on the company that you go to, you're working with. If they are kind of still using divs, you still have to stick to divs. If they kind of move into this newer one, you still have to use the new one. All right, there's no like a right or wrong answer. Both will work. The output will still be the same. Okay. All right, so class versus ID, we already saw this. Okay, any questions before we move on? Okay, so Chrome DevTools. So do you guys look at this on Saturday? No? Okay. So here's a cool thing is when you run your when you run your HTML code on the browser, Chrome, I think other browsers have their own thing. If you do inspect, there's the other way to get to it, which is go to the menu, more tools, and developer tools. You will see that this window at the bottom shows up. This window will exactly tell you what HTML you are running, what CSS is being loaded, everything. Alright, especially when you're doing your homeworks, your projects, you kind of get to a phase you're like, I don't know why this section tag is not going over there. What's the issues? Use this debugging tool. What this will do is it will help you understand and see exactly. If I click over here, it tells me, oh, this is the HTML tag Google is using. They have an image. This is the image they're using. This is the width. This is the CSS that is being loaded. You can also do the same thing in your assignments. Load the HTML page, right click, inspect, or go into this 3 dots, more tools, and then developer tools. Brings up the same window. There are a few more tabs over here, but we'll look at those tabs later on, especially the console. That's the other one that we'll be using when we get to JavaScript. For HTML, your elements, and then you can kind of go through and see what's going on. Let's see. The other thing is, if you want to go to a specific piece of the page, this arrow, the leftmost arrow, you can click this, and then click anywhere. Let's see, Google. Okay? And the cool thing is, now let's suppose you are trying to figure out, okay, something is wrong in my CSS, I need to fix it. So what you have to do right now, you go to Visual Studio, fix it, go back to the browser, and see if it fixed. All right. The easier way to do is you can fix it over here. All of these are editable. You can edit these and see if it works. If it works, then you go back to your code and fix it. The only thing is, everything that you change over here will remain over here. It's not going to modify your code or anything. All right. Let's see what we can do over here. Let's see.
So when you're editing, this is only happening in your browser. So
exactly.
It's affecting like Google's page here. It's only going to affect your browser.
I don't know. Let's find out.
Check Google's page. Yeah, Google. Yeah.
Oh no, I changed.
Like it. It's our first hack.
Yeah. So yeah, everything that you're changing, you're not hacking Google. Everything is on your browser. Refresh it, it will come back. But then you can change the color, the background, anything you see over here. Everything is fair game. Let's see what this is.
That was really quick.
You know what? Why don't you guys open up and go ahead and try this on your own? We'll do a 15-minute exercise. But you get the idea. You can change, especially the CSS. You can change the colors. Pick up any site. It doesn't have to be Google, Amazon, Walmart, or any website, LinkedIn, anything you like. MySpace. There you go. There. Maybe you can make it better. So let's take. Yeah. Really? Somebody actually uses it? Wow. Interesting. Yes. Okay. Let's take a look. Right. So I think, let me go back. Right, if it is side by side, if you click these three, you have these options. You can move it side, or you can bring it down. These three dots over here at the end, and then you can move it. It's preference, as Blair is saying. Some people like it over here, some people like it over here. So just whatever you get used to. Hmm. Let's Google that. Let's try to see if we can find solution.
How did you change the image?
You know what? I can't mess with Disney websites because they have
Let's say maybe try restarting Chrome, just Chrome, like close everything. You did that?
Yeah.
Weird.
There's trying to do, I started with like easy homework. So we're trying to use expected the errors that I had.
Okay. Hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Saturday, and then after that,
Have you done your second
oh yeah, and now it's just like,
Saying it's not showing up. How does that happen? Yeah, you have options in different browsers. Firefox has it. Safari has it. Every other one has it. Are you using any custom Chrome theme? No. Mm-hmm. So whatever changes you guys make, you can go ahead and Slack out the screenshot Yes.
How do you change something? I mean, I'm looking at text and
Okay.
but I'm not changing anything.
So let's see. So what are you, like? Let's suppose I want to change this, right?
Right.
So I go do an inspect, and if I look at my HTML, this is my image tag. It tells me,
Yeah.
you know how. So this is the PNG. This is the image file that they are loading.
Uh-huh.
So I can find out a different PNG file and just
Oh,
replace it over here.
Okay.
Or if you want to change some colors, colors are CSS, right? So on your left, you will see this thing over here. This is all your CSS. So, so let's suppose this search bar. I do an inspect. It tells me this is my opacity. So let's go ahead. Oop. It means that it has to be transparent. So I'm going to increase it to. That's not what I want. Yeah. Make it 1, and then you see this background. Remember from your CSS, background sets the color and all that stuff, so you can make it red, so it changes. Yeah, try this is a more simple site. You can try something different, like a yeah, anything. Let's see what they have. Amazon, some news site or anything. You'll have more color options and spacing and all this stuff. And when you guys are done with this, give it a try on something that you are currently working on. Could be an activity, or if you started your homework. Look into your homework, right click, inspect, and change few things on the browser. Don't change your code. Just your homework assignment or your activity that you worked on. Render it, run it in your web browser. Bring up the HTML page and kind of try to make those changes, because that's where you will be using it mostly. I was looking at the attendance, and every single one of you made it back to second week, actually. So that's kind of. It's like you guys are in a boxing ring, and you're like, oh, I can no problem. I can hit, punch, and punch. And you're like, oh, I'm back for round 2.
Welcome to Fight Club.
Yeah.
First rule about Fight Club:
Yeah.
keep talking about Fight Club. Otherwise, you'll forget everything that you learned.
Oh, yeah. That is super cool. Oh, there's the first screenshot from Reggie. This is a screenshot from Reggie. You can tell that this site has been hacked just by looking at the score.
What are they doing out of limestone?
No, we'll see in the next one. But what it means is that it is being overwritten by something else. Right. So line means this property is being overwritten somewhere else. Like the one that Andrew sent. And I was waiting for it. Last class they took my LinkedIn and like changed the whole thing and then posted it. Yeah. I was like, let's see if somebody does it. There's always somebody in the class who does that. So. Let's do this. We'll take a 10-15 minute break. I think it's a good time because the next few ones are going to be more serious than this. Okay, so this was just kind of like a break. So we'll take let's say take a 15-minute break, and then we'll look at the next topics after this. Sure. Okay.
I just undownloaded it and re-downloaded it and it's still not working.
Still not working?
I give up.
What?
That doesn't wait.
Okay.
So I resulted to my Mozilla Firefox. Anyways, so this is the homework entry.
Okay.
It doesn't look great. I know.
It's getting there. Okay.
I'm just struggling with this part because I guess I have the sections. I just can't. I don't know where to go to like separate that.
Separate. Show me that again.
Yeah, and we can inspect on Mozilla.
Right. So so let's see. So you have the header. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's the nav, and then.
So you're trying to add space from the right hand.
Well, I guess because on the visual. In the visual, there's a space in between here, and it's.
Oh, between
looking,
here.
Yeah, now it's looking like I need to move this over more.
Okay. So
it's just not perfect.
Right. So if you want the spaces with the elements, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is this. This is
Yeah.
this. So use the margin, the personal space. That's where it comes. So you're trying to increase the space between two elements. So you will see you have 4 properties for margin. You have top, bottom, left, and right. Right. So if you do just use a margin property and set some number, let's say 100 px, you will see that it's going to make a space 100 px this way, this way, this way, this way. If you just want the bottom one, then you will say margin bottom, and then give some value.
So in this situation, margin.
Yeah, if you're trying to give it to the bottom, then it has to be So this one.
This one would be margin.
This one, the element that you have on the top. Let's suppose I'm guessing that the header.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's suppose you have header on the top, and below you have a section. Let's suppose you have section, right? So in your header, CSS, you're going to say margin bottom is equal to some value. Let's say 100 px. What's going to happen is it's going to create a space between this. It's going to push it down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you will see a white space or something, and it will create white space here. The margins are for the spacing. We're going to try for margins first. Okay, try the margins. But for this one, if you're trying to give space between these two, you'll update the CSS for this one.
Well, in this situation, I think I'm just trying to do it between these two, so then I'll just
Between
margin
these two,
left.
margins are, there you go.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, question.
Mhm.
So this isn't perfect, but I still want to try the basic one.
Yeah.
So can I submit this and still do the basic one, and then like on Saturday if it doesn't get like.
Right.
submit
So
whatever.
this is the basic one.
No, this is the easy.
Yeah, easy basic
Yeah.
is the same thing. So there's
So the stand. Okay, so in the thing it says easy, and then the other one says the normal. I guess basic, or is it normal?
okay, yeah.
There's two different assignments. Right?
Okay, right. The harder one.
Yeah, and this is the easy one.
Yeah.
So then I can submit that, but I still want to try the
Yeah.
other one.
Yeah,
So
keep
let's
it
say
going.
Saturday comes and I don't completely get it all
Okay.
done. Do I still submit the
Yeah,
other?
still submit it.
Okay.
Yeah, just go ahead and submit it.
Okay.
Submit anything that you, and then I would say if you after Saturday, submit everything. Go back to person on it.
Yeah.
And then you can do it.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if
Well, it's traditional. So, someone to the developer. Yeah, so, I mean, it can be like, it could be Oh God. From which view? This one. I just like it. So I'm just going to select this right here.
Yeah,
It doesn't really matter. So just select the element you want to change.
Now, you can change things down more than makes sense. Or can you, because I was trying to change things up here.
Yeah. So you can see like so just so yeah, so now that I have like how I want the bars of yeah, so they're just drop down arrows, you know. Yeah, that's why.
Yes. Yeah.
So CD and over bootstrap this one. This one. Then we use bootstrap and HTML.
But yeah, you did have that control.
That's the next week.
Make sense?
Yeah. And we don't want to write it down in the easy part. Then thing is, the first thing is I find
I don't think so. Maybe.
Oh yeah, no. This is not the only time you will see in the future. How about you? This homework, oh yeah. And then also, we want to be strong 63 and something home. Then afterwards, Saturday. Yes. Saturday. Pretty cool. Oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. Saturday, yeah, you have the whole Saturday. We got a bar if you know. No, that's fine. I try to avoid it. No, it's not bad. It's just like you go at 5 early and come before you No, I just, I go through
Oh, you got a bar? I don't care.
It's awesome. One of the guys we get to with, he's swamping for so, he has to be Old Town Scottsdale every single day. He's telling me about like they were wrestling. Alright, man, turn around. I lost. I was like, dude, still. Understand that. And you know, you can see here too, so just to change it. Correspond to it's like, okay. Only say no, there's lots of options. The one we, you know, recorded it, and we have cell phones. So
All right. All right, let's go ahead and start the next topic. All right, come to a stopping point. Close your laptops. We'll start on this one. Okay. Everybody good? Ready? All right. Oh, oh. So there's a concept in CSS called CSS reset. We are going to look at CSS reset, but before that, there are a few things, and you will see in the end how all of these kind of tie in. All right, so these are kind of more important topics now. So we saw in HTML you can put a link and put in an external style.css or external CSS file, right? In the same way, you can load multiple CSS files. All right, you can load as many as you want. The use case for multiple would be, if you have just one CSS file, it kind of gets bigger. You have like 200 lines, 300 lines. Maybe you want to break it out. You want to break by some components or something. You can have multiple CSS files and multiple different CSS in those files. All right, you can do that. Let me quickly create an example. So let me go ahead and create a folder, say multiple CSS. All right. In this, I'm going to create a HTML file. I'm going to call it index.html. All right, and then on the same level, I'll create style.css. Okay, let's go back to index. I'm going to write some basic HTML. Okay, I'm just going to have a h1 tag here. I'm going to say this is an exercise for loading multiple CSS. Okay. Let's okay. I need to open this. And load this page. All right. Straightforward, just a simple HTML file. All right. Let's go ahead and style this. So let me show you also the power of live server. I'm running this live. So as soon as I change anything, it's going to auto load my HTML. All right, so let's suppose I say, see it auto loaded. So I have a live server running, and then I have this on auto save, so I don't have to worry about anything. All right, so CSS, get back. I'm going to add a basic some CSS. I'm going to say background color is red. Okay, so the background doesn't change. Why is that? Excellent. I don't have my CSS link. Thank you, Michael. So let's go ahead and where would I add my CSS? In the head tag, I will say link. It kind of adds everything for me. Visual Studio helps me. It says CSS is here, and I see that back. It's as I said, it's just link. I just said link, and then I hit enter, and then I put in style.css. Okay, pretty easy. Now we are talking about multiple CSS files, right? Let's go ahead and add a new one here. I'm going to say style1.css. Okay. And I'm going to add same styling for the same element. And this time I'm going to change the color to, let's say, green. Okay. Of course, that no changes because I have not added this right now. So Now see what happens when I add the second one. Change green. It's cascading. Excellent. So you see, I have two CSS files. One has H1 styling as red, and the second one has it as green. The second or the last one will always take precedence. Go back here. Okay. So the order in which you load your CSS files matters. The last one is the one that's going to override the previous one. Now, if I had an element that did not belong in the first one, let's suppose I'm styling p tag here. Okay, but the p tag doesn't exist in this one. So what's going to happen? It's going to load the last one. Right? It's not going to overwrite anything. But if there are common elements, they are going to get overwritten in the last one.
What the common elements?
The common elements with the common attributes. Yeah. So if there's a new one, if I add if I add something over here, let's try. Let's see what can I change. Maybe the color. So since this color is not over there, it's not good. So the common element and the common properties, those are going to get overridden if it exists in the next one. Okay, so breaking it out into different, right now in your assignments, you probably won't get there because it won't be as big, but there is an option. This kind of ties into the next part and we'll see, but you do have an option to write multiple CSS files. And this is not like a rare site. You will see that when you are developing a corporate site, you have a lot of CSS going on, a lot of different pages. Usually what we do is we divide the file structure based on pages. So you might have a home folder in your HTML file, then you might have let's say a contact folder, and then home folder will have a home HTML. It will also have a home.css file. So all the CSS that are related to this HTML reside over here. Then for contact, you can have contact.html. Okay, and then you can have a contact.css. Contact.css. You see, I'm breaking it down into different portions. Kind of makes your code readable and kind of isolates from the other one, so that you exactly know when you're trying to look, you're trying to find an issue. If I want to change anything in contact, I don't have to go over here and go through the whole thing, try to find out where the contact is. I can directly go in this folder and I exactly know where my CSS file is, and I can look into this CSS file. All right, so that's where the division comes in. But you have to be careful, anything that you are using common. All right, it's the last one that kind of loads is going to get overridden. All right, that's the only rule. Yes, please.
With that being said, how would you have an override if you already have like the different CSS files?
How would you override them?
Yeah, because you have the contact name home, so that would be a home right there.
So this example doesn't have more than one.
Yeah. This one doesn't have, but if you had example over a home.css and home1.css,
Okay.
then these would be the ones that are. And the reason is because these two are being linked in this one. You can totally link this CSS over here also, right? There's nothing stopping you. All right, you can just do a link and then look up this path and link over here. But usually, yeah, in this folder, if you have multiple CSS files, that's where it will get overridden. Okay, any other questions? Yes.
Sorry.
Not last question, go ahead. It's fine.
If it's all linked in one HTML, why would you have multiple like home 1 and 2? I guess why wouldn't you
Right.
do one?
Well, here again, so now my home page, I have divided into two. I have home CSS and a home HTML, right?
Yeah.
Now, when my home page is bigger, I have a header, I have sections, right? It's kind of getting bigger and bigger, right? So a lot of by convention people are trying to isolate. They try to make blocks of code that are smaller and smaller. So what they do is they kind of isolate. Oh, this is my one component. You can divide this by component one CSS. All right. This is my section. You can say section.css. Right. Kind of isolates everything. And it kind of, again, the same thing. Why we are doing this? Because if your page is too complex, it's kind of easy for the next person who comes in to kind of navigate quickly and kind of resolve some issues. You will see in the future with React.js, when we go, they have divided everything into components. They kind of follow this strategy, so everything is isolated, and we'll see what this is. But this is one reason you would have multiple CSS files. Okay? Yes, George.
It's more of a comment, so like you said, this is more like an organizational thing.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Just keep the codes like easy to read.
Right.
Because when you put everything in one page, it looks like a jumbled mess.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's, like,
yeah.
easy to work.
Exactly. It's more of for us humans. Otherwise, I can have one HTML and one CSS and load the whole page. HTML or your browser is never going to complain. Yes, Jeffrey.
Is this more, I guess, most websites nowadays? I mean, they have so much JavaScript on them.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, just because I went to a Disney site, I mean, they had so many folders of everything, all these branches.
Yeah, yeah. It just you just have to come to a point where you. I mean, even this can get ugly, right? You have folder within folder within folder, so you just have to come to a compromise and see what makes more sense, right? There's no right answer. There's no wrong answer, right? For some corporation, more components kind of work. For some, they're like, well, it's like too complex. I don't even have a site that is that complex and I have like 10 folders already. So you need to kind of reduce that. It's, again, it comes with more experience. As you work on it, you'll be like, okay, this makes more sense or this makes more sense. But the facility, the capabilities are available to you how you want to divide it. Okay? All right, any other questions? Awesome. So pretty okay, right? You can have multiple files. Let's see what this kind of ties into. We did this. So when it comes to browsers, you have Chrome, you have Safari, Mozilla Firefox. So, so when we are writing our websites, what browser are you targeting? Is it like Chrome, IE?
Have they gotten that much different? Because I remember, I mean, even like 5 years ago, they were kind of different, but it seems like, because you would use user agents to like render, and it basically was just IE.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna say, I use the browser.
that's it, Opera maybe, and Safari. Now it seems like they all are trying to do freaking Microsoft, Google thing. We're all different.
Right. So the right answer is we are going to be good citizens of internet. We are going to target all browsers. It doesn't matter what our audience is, right? IE, I get it. Everybody hates it, but there are people. There's a large population who still use IE. You cannot ignore IE. Mac users, they use Safari primarily, right? You cannot ignore. Right now, we are focused on Chrome. I get it because it has more tools. It's easier to understand quickly. But when you're writing more professional website, when you take this course and you are, kind of coming up with a more professional projects, what happens is they write the code and the testing is done on all the browsers that are supported. Okay, you will see when you have QA engineers on your company, they test the website in at least Chrome, Safari, Firefox, and IE 11 or IE whatever, IE 9 plus, whatever the version is going on. Okay, you will see that since why do they test in all different browsers? You wrote the code, but why do we need to test? Because it is different. You will see some of the elements are different. Excellent, right? So it's not as bad right now as Geoffrey was saying, but if you go back in time, if you read about the browser wars, right? Netscape Navigator, anybody remembers that? All right. It was the more better browser when IE came out back in 95 or 90s, right? But what happened? Right? Microsoft released their Windows and they only put IE in it, right? What happened? Netscape sued them. They said they are doing monopoly, they cannot put IE. After whenever the decision came, And Netscape actually won that case, and they were like, yeah, you cannot do it. But what happened?
Market share.
Microsoft knew they're going to lose that case, and they still did it because what happened? If you wanted to go to internet, there was a blue E icon. You click in. That was the only way. And Netscape never came back. They even won the case, and Microsoft said, "Yeah, go ahead, and we'll put your browser there too." But nobody even clicked it because the way they were going for it, they already achieved. So Microsoft knew they're going to lose that case, but that was never the point. The point was to have a delay so that people kind of get used to IE, and they never came back to Netscape. Yeah, well, Netscape kind of went back. They kind of rebranded. Now they are Mozilla Firefox. Firefox kind of got their code. They kind of rebranded. They came back. But Netscape, as its name, never came back from that. Right?
I remember when they used to do that too. When it
Yeah.
have a select where you can put the Netscape browser. When you
Right.
log in the internet,
Yeah.
you
Yeah. And the problem with at that time was you had lower bandwidths, not as speedy internet. It would take a lot of time to download Netscape. So they were saying, you need to bundle it with your Microsoft Windows, which they later did, but it was already dead by the time they did it. Right. So at that point also, what was happening was, if you go back and see, there were websites, they were saying works best with IE, works best with Netscape Navigator. The trick was that intentionally the people who were writing the software for those browsers, they were kind of putting in things that your website will only render good on this browser. It won't render well on this one, right? These days, that's not the case. We have gotten over that. Now everybody, all the browsers try to render your website as best as they can, but still there are few things that kind of mess up, right? Especially when you're dealing with IE versus Chrome, and then Safari also, right? So there are a few tricks. Oh, come on. Set. Okay. Before I show you the trick, so here, let's see what would be a good point. Okay, so to cater that, your elements are kind of getting rendered somewhere differently in a browser. They're getting differently. So there's a trick called reset.css, or I think it's also called normalize. What this does is you include a file called reset.css in your style sheet in your program. It's going to strip everything from the whatever CSS that this browser by default makes. All right. Here's the interesting thing. Let me go back and show you something. So let's suppose I am not loading any of these. All right. Now I just have a h1 tag. I have no CSS. All right. But still kind of it has a font. It is kind of bigger, right? Why is this happening? You think HTML is doing it? No, it is not. Yeah, your browser secretly injects CSS of its own. All right, let's go back and see. Inspect. Let's inspect this H1. You see this over here? I didn't write the display block, margin block, font size, bold, right? So that's what is happening. HTML is just text. H1 versus H2 versus H3. There's actually no difference between these. Your browsers take this and add their own. It's called user agent style sheet, right? Chrome has it, Safari, every browser has it. They have a default CSS file that they load, and based on that CSS file, the things are coming up. Okay? So if you Google user agent CSS, you can actually look at this whole code. Just Google user agent style sheet Chrome. They have a whole CSS file. It has all the tags, elements, everything over there. Okay? Again, your browser default loads some CSS. HTML is simple text, all right? But now with our knowledge for CSS, we kind of figure out that, okay, So if this is bold or bigger, if this is the font size, that something is happening on the behind the scenes. And so there's a default CSS that gets loaded. Now this default CSS, every browser has it, right? Usually, right now in today's world, a lot of this is kind of similar to if you see this font size 2EM, it's a new, what do you say, new metrics versus pixels. But even if you open this in Safari or Firefox, you will see they both kind of have the same font size. So most of the time, a lot of the elements are same. But still, there's a trick that you want to start fresh. You don't want this to be loaded. You're going to start and you're going to say, I'm going to take control of the CSS completely and I'm going to style my elements like I want. The advantage of this is you don't have to go back and rewrite or change anything when you open it in Firefox or different browser, Chrome, anything, right? Why? Because you're not loading this anyway. Everything you are doing is you are loading it over here. So your font size, whatever you write the CSS is going to be the same font size in every browser. Okay? Any questions? Before I'll show you the code how to do this.
But you haven't showed us a reset CSS does yet.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So now what we want to strip this out and then start blank, and that's where the reset CSS comes in. So if you just Google reset.css, what is reset CSS? Even if you don't see, if I tell you reset.css, it should tell you that it's a CSS file. So somebody has written a CSS file that goes in and basically just strips everything out. So let's go and look at the first one. Okay, you see what is happening? It's still basically a CSS file that somebody has written. What they're doing is they're saying, oh, for all these tags, put margin 0, padding 0, border 0, reduce everything, remove everything from that default CSS that gets loaded. Okay, and how do you include it? Just copy this file and then let's go ahead and link. And this is how my original H1 actually looks like. You know, it's just a HTML tag, right? That's how it will look. Now you can go ahead and you can say, okay, now I'm going to style it. So what you're going to do is loading matters. So I'm going to load this first. Okay, and then I can load this. Oops. Oh, because I have two comments here. Let me just remove this. Okay. So it first loads the CSS, the reset one resets everything, removes all the padding, all the fancy size, and then you load your own CSS and it's going to style. Yes, Matt.
Why would you ever not?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of the thing is with a lot of the time you'll see on Thursday's class we use a third-party CSS like Bootstrap. A lot of different. If you are purely writing in CSS, then yes, this is how you start it, and that's the better way. But you know, a lot of people or small businesses kind of try to start off with a third-party library like Bootstrap or something. So this kind of invalidates that. You don't really want to strip out everything from Bootstrap. But yes, to your question, yes, you will see that people start with this. Yes.
So then, you know, for the homework that's due on Saturday, right? Like,
Right.
Making your own, if you're doing the recommended assignment, making your own portfolio page and stuff. Like so far, I did not put a CSS reset in that, and
Okay.
it still
No.
looks good, but
Right.
yeah,
So
I'm
so
still
again,
doing everything.
for whatever we are going to study this week, it does not apply to your homework.
Yeah.
Everything is for the previous one, whatever you have studied. So this doesn't apply. Even for the next week, again, this is a concept and you guys will do an exercise right now about it. You don't have to use this in even your next assignment. I just want you guys to know that this is there. And if you go and you're working somewhere and you see this file, you don't get kind of confused at what's going on. At this point, in your assignments, you don't have to use it. you can still go by the default, whatever your browser. Because right now we are just working, we're keeping it simple. Your website loads in Chrome or Firefox, looks fine. Whatever browser you're using is fine. But this is for more production ready for like a real life example. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Give it a try.
Do people just link straight to this guy's site?
Um,
They make their own?
No, you can make your own. You see somebody actually wrote it, or you can actually download this. It's on GitHub, right? You can download this or just copy this, create a separate CSS file.
I threw it in Slack under resources.
So I can say reset .css, and you can just paste this here. Okay, go back and remove this reference, and then reload your CSS. Still does the same thing. Yeah, you can do that. Just look at the license. I mean, it's freely available, so there's no issue. Yeah, you can. You know, again. You look at it. It's just code, right? You can change it according to what you want. Right. Again, what is happening is, go back to our first thing. The order matters. So whatever you load first, that takes that will do everything, and anything that is common then comes over here. All right. So you can actually change your reset to, if you want for some reason margin to be 1 1 instead of 0 0, you can put that over there. Yes, Dante.
So like if you use the reset CSS and like say whatever you're working on works perfectly in Chrome, would you want to match that to the default CSS in Chrome?
So your reset CSS is going to load in Chrome, Firefox, everything. All right. This code doesn't know what it's going to load in, right? When you right click and you say open in Chrome, so it's the same. It will go here. It will reset everything in Chrome. If you open in Firefox, it's going to go reload this, reset everything in Firefox. So it's going to remove everything from it. So this reset CSS that somebody has written, they have kind of tested out in all the popular browsers, so it kind of works with everything. So how this was written is that somebody went in, they researched the browsers, and even these browser CSS, these are available if you search user agent style sheet, let's say Chrome. It's not kind of like a hidden secret or anything. Somebody has compiled all the list. Let's see over here, Chrome. You have all these. So you see, this is the exact CSS that Chrome is loading, right? So somebody went over here, they kind of found the common parts, and they created a file called reset.css, and this works for Chrome, IE, Firefox, and everything. Right. You are telling the browser to not use their CSS, instead, reset everything. Like, make it 0, like kind of reset everything. Yes.
And this is supposed to help us for cross-browser testing?
Exactly, yes. Cross-browser, you're loading or rendering your pages in different browsers. Yes. Right. You see the point that I have taken the control from my browser, and I'm taking control on my website now. I can do whatever I want. Okay? Good questions. Anything else? All right, let's see if the next one is an exercise. Okay, so Nick already slacked you out. Go ahead and create something or put a reset CSS, kind of get to know how you do it in the code. All right, and then create your own style.css, add a style, override it, and see what happens. Just to get used to how this works. All right. Again, you can Google reset.css, download the copy, or Nick has already sent you. You can link it, or you can put it in your own reset.css. Now, do I have to call it reset CSS? No, you can call it anything you want, all right? But the standards, you will see, it's usually called reset CSS because people are kind of used to it. So if I'm a new developer in your company and I see reset.css, I will be like, okay, I know what it does. Versus I see like, I don't know, style or something CSS. Usually you will also hear a different name called normalize. They both kind of are the same thing. Everybody almost done? No, still working on it? Questions? Everybody good? You're still working? Okay. So, how did we start? So, you have the reset.css? I don't have anything. That's right. So, let's Google reset.css. We are looking for the complete file. Okay, so for reset.css. No, that's not. Let's see the first one. So this is what we are looking for. I found it. We're just looking for this. So if we from the top. Oh, are you using home or index? I was using home. Okay, is there this on the so see, you probably get this. So you are opening you want to load your home.html and that's it. Open your default browser. You're looking at the browser. Oh, this is probably okay. That's all right. Let's look at the last topic of the day. Let's see how fast we can get through it. Okay. So you guys know about GitHub. Now you guys are doing your assignments, right? Right now, when you run it, it's on your local, like on your computer. That's the only way you can see it. So GitHub gives us ability to host our web pages, right? The only caveat to that is if your website has only HTML and CSS, that's the only capability that GitHub Pages has. Okay, for now, for 2 weeks, GitHub Pages will work. All right, when we get into JavaScript, we'll have to do something different. But for now, we can host our pages on GitHub. It will give you a link. Whenever anybody clicks that link, they will take you to your website. Okay, so we are basically going to look at hosting, and you can submit your assignments after this class. When you do it on Saturday, you can submit the GitHub link also, and I would say go ahead and try to submit GitHub pages so that when I click, your web page just opens up. Okay, so how do we do this? Let me go ahead and demo this, and then you guys can try on your own later on. Okay, we'll do an exercise. So I'm going to go to GitHub. Let's see. Copy. Let's see. Okay, and I'm going to post this link on Slack in a bit. So these are the instruction. How do you create and host your page, right? So the first thing is oh, come on. GitHub. You have to create a new repository. I'm going to create a repository. This is very specific. Right? This is the only way GitHub is going to load your page. You have to create a repository starting with your not there. Starting with your username. This is my username, and then github.io. All right. So you have to create a repository with your username dot github.io. Okay. That's the first step. Let's see what happens. So I need to go ahead github.io. Okay, let's go ahead and create this. Testing GitHub pages. Initialize. Go ahead and create this repository. And then I'm going to go ahead and clone this. Same steps. So I want to clone this. So you guys can see it. Okay. So git clone goes ahead, is going to clone this. Okay, clone done. Let's go back. Here's my repository. I'm going to add a index.html file here. I'm going to say basic HTML. We can just add a h1 tag. This is example for GitHub pages. Okay. All good. Let me just test this out. Okay, looks good. Go back to my repo. Then I am going to push it. First thing, git add. I am not inside this one, so I can go back here. Okay, I'm in the right directory now, so I'm going to go ahead and do a git add, then git commit, write a message, right, and then git push. Okay, let's go back to my GitHub, refresh this, and I have my README over here in this. Okay, now how do you access it? It's the same repository that you created. Okay. Now any one of you can go to this link. My username is danielk.github.io, and you should see the same thing. Okay. So this has been hosted on GitHub Pages, and if you do this to your assignment also, your assignment can be accessible anywhere. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So
Basically, you want us to resave our assignments in that repository.
right, you can submit it as a. I'll show you another way. I don't want to change your assignments to this right now.
Okay.
There's another way. I'll show you. But this is the one. This is the straightforward, the more easier way. So the first thing I did was I want to create a repository with this name, my username, .github.io. This is the only way. Okay. Now. No, just the username. This means this is a kind of variable, like it will change. So this will be your exact username that you have for your GitHub. All right. Create the repository. The next steps were I cloned it, I added some HTML file, okay, and then I pushed it to my repository. Okay. Same GitHub links, GitHub commands, and then I could see my index.html. Okay. Here's the thing, it has to be index.html. Try it with a different name. I think it doesn't do it. It only looks for your index.html. So by convention, index means this is my first page. This is the starting point of my website. And you will have home, contact, and blah, 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 blah. right? But index is by convention the first page that it loads. Okay.
So the next one doesn't have to index it?
Next one.
Next HTML link.
No, you can, if you have more HTML over here, you will create a home.html and then link your index to your home. Then, if you click index, then it goes to your home page. Remember from the assignment, you have from the top, you have navigation, you have this bar, you have contact, you have home, right? When you click this, it goes to your contact page. When you click this, it goes to your home page. So you will have different files over here.
Right.
Okay, but it will work as if you put in links over here, you put more pages, it's going to work as a website. Right? Yes.
So as long as you have the index one first, it's going to work.
Right. Yeah, and then you link it out. No, yeah. Well, we haven't even covered JavaScript. So this only works if your website have HTML and CSS. So it will work for 2 weeks. Yes. Well, this is a step you can host your website so that everybody can look at it. I'm saying when you submit your homework, you can submit the GitHub link. That will work. But if you want to try, do this, and it'll be easier. Anybody can see your profile. Yeah, whatever web page you make.
Submit that, whatever the browser.
Yeah, you will submit. Yeah, exactly like this. You will submit your GitHub Git repository, and in the next one, you can just submit this link. Anybody clicks it, it will just go. You can try it right now. If you go to this link, you will actually see this.
So if you wanted to host a different few.
Good question. If I want to host a different one,
like,
can
so
I
like,
do it?
Yeah, if you have like two that you wanted to host, you still have the same user.
So I cannot do it basically. This only hosts one thing, right? You're right. If I want to host multiple, I cannot use this because this is always going to tie it to my. I cannot have 2 usernames, right? I have to create a new GitHub account, right? Yes, and that is the next step how we do the second part. Okay, the first one, Bree is right, Matt is right. This is the basic one, but in this case, the drawback is you can only have one website you can host, right? It is always going to be one. You cannot host multiples. Okay. Before I show you the next one to show multiple, go ahead and give it a try right now so that you guys are at least familiar with this part, right? The basic one, because this is easier versus the next one. Okay. So yeah, just create a temporary.
I have 3 repositories.
Make a new one. Yeah. Microsoft is giving it private for your free. You don't be.
Okay, well, it's in the GitHub desktop. I mean, it's the same thing because I just downloaded it because it was asking me to.
Okay. I haven't used it, but it's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't used GitHub desktop, but from what I understand, it's the same thing. You should be able to do everything that you are doing over there. What you can do is you copy create a new repo with your github.io and then copy those 4 or 5 from somewhere else from your other repo and just copy it over.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll host this. And let me go ahead and send you this link, and this actually outlines the exact steps that I have just now went through.
You want us to have a specific description for this?
No? Okay, yeah. You can write description that will help you. This is the next part.
And then create.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Totally different. And that's never happened. Alright, let's see what you did. Okay. That's okay. Yeah. So
This is the same URL.
yeah, so go ahead and clone it to your desktop or to your laptop. The same way, git clone everything, put a HTML file, index.html, and then push it. I think you did a, like an empty, you did select like a beginning or something. So it basically created an empty file. So you saw my different was when you do it in repository, which is fine. This is how it will show you something. It's like trying to help you. Hey, you can do it. Yeah, do something. Yes. Okay. So what? How did you start? Did you click the link that I sent on Slack?
Did you do add or did you do document? Because that's what it is. Is it supposed it's your username dot github. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you did. Okay. So
I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking for. Is it the cloning?
the cloning. So how do you clone? In the terminal, right? Get back. Remember from the previous class?
Okay.
Right. So this is where you would clone your GitHub repositories.
Okay, so that's the getting.
No. First you have to clone.
Yep.
Okay. And what do you put in? This is fine. Yeah.
I didn't write it down.
Git clone and the URL, the website. So go back here. See.
Okay, is that the copy of the clipboard? And then the
Okay. So you are in your whatever this folder is going to clone it over there. Okay. You want to go to desktop?
I want to go to my C drive and it's not there.
CD space forward slash 0.
Okay.
Okay.
So, it says on the is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So now do ls, and you should see this folder. No, just do ls.
Oh, you want to see it?
See that folder? Should be a username dot or let's
No.
okay. Do a CD space. It's somewhere there. CD space, and then type in your user, whatever that. Just press tab. Press tab. Tab.
This is what I just made it.
It's somewhere over here.
Complete.
There it is. Okay. Sorry, I just didn't see it.
Okay, so now you are inside that folder. Now what do you have to do? You have to create an HTML file
You have to create with HTML.
called index.html. So how do you create a file? Touch space index.html. Yeah.
What's the name of the
Right. What was it?
What's the name of
Index.html.
Index. Oh, yes, it's got it.
Okay. Do a ls to see if it's there. Okay, now open this folder in your Visual Studio and then add some HTML to it. Still not working? That's fine. There. We here after the class. Okay. I googled it. There are some basic commands that.
Do enable it, I remember that settings.
Yeah.
Reset. And the dev tool is
I didn't know.
yeah, so this wasn't there, so I did it, I reset it.
You get better.
Simple get push. Because the reason it works is because you only have one branch master right now. We are not messing with any other branch. So get push will by default push it to master. If you have multiple ones, then right now it's fine. Easier would be go back to your this one.
Oh, it's
So easier would be if you're typing Explorer space dot, it just opens up the Explorer. Enter. No, space. Enter. So it opens up directly to, so this is where you are. Okay.
So how do I get that for here?
In Visual Studio?
Yeah.
Open folder. So I will click on the bar. This one? This one? Oh. No, this one. One more time. Click.
I forgot. Like Control F or something.
Okay, copy that.
Not all those. Like I.
Paste it over there.
I know where it's like Control. How do you do that? Control I.
How do you do? Shortcut for doing space station now.
Shift.
Thank you. Not giving. I think it's just that it's just that
Okay. Try to see this documentation that I posted on Slack. It outlines the exact same steps that I just showed you. So you have to create a repository with the pictures, and then you have to clone it. You did the clone part, and then you open and you put in some code in your index.html.
So I need to do it in the index.html.
Yes, yes. Now write it, shift the exclamation mark, gives you a template, shift exclamation mark. Yeah.
I did this. Get bash. Touch. But then like I pushed it and then it said everything up to date. But then when I look
Did you do a get add first? You have to do get add, get commit, and then get push.
I didn't add.
Push.
Yeah. I just kind of jammed.
You can't just push. You don't want to make it so easy.
I gotta add.
No. It's just complicated. If you can just push everything and work.
So you're just wanting us to basically do just like a header?
Yeah. Just a simple one. I just want to make sure the point is that when you access your userid.github.io, your web page should show up.
So then after you create it, it's get add, get commit.
Get add space dot.
Right. But get add, get commit, and then it's
Exactly. Yeah.
Finally.
Woo!
Okay.
right.
Showed up?
I don't think so. It just says my username.
You're the new code.
That's opening your
No, you still code.
Yeah.
But your code
Did you put in index.html?
It's gotta be indexed. Oh, that's right.
Did you do? If you don't put index.html, that's what it shows.
Oh.
Did you put index.html?
Yeah, it's a lot easier.
Yeah. So that's one work. It only works.
It was,
You have to
I don't
make
know.
it index.
Saturday.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Okay.
It's kind of, yeah. Well, it's free, so there shouldn't be any complaint.
Can't really complain.
Yeah. It has to be index.html for it to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't get an issue with Git adding, and I know I'm in the right folder.
Are you inside the folder that you closed?
Yes.
And you added HTML file? What did you do then? Git space add space code?
That's a good idea.
So because you are not inside that folder, do ls.
Because I have
It
different
was
folders.
when I was trying to write
We have to
this
do this
is
our
I had to folder.
So I saved it in the wrong folder.
Organization makes your life so much.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we do at work, is just impersonate people.
It's just the word.
North Dakota.
Well, it's already.
I think the. Oh my God, we saw it. I was thinking this babies I want to see.
The other one's the boss. Like,
I grew up in the Midwest. I just work it. I know what hall is. That's like the other part. I grew up in Cleveland.
Well, I'm not trying to make it.
You have it. Works.
Yeah, I guess it's just too like go out. So this is how it works. Really annoying.
And thinking about it the wrong way down, the div, and then inside that is one more div, and another div.
It's all about nesting div. Yes. Yeah, so it's gonna be the second.
Yeah.
Live. Yes.
I know, that's the problem. That's the problem. That's just two elements. You gotta get it.
Oh, yeah, we have to do it.
I understood it when I started doing it, because I started like pressing buttons. Yeah, I started like testing everything. I just pressed buttons and I was I try on there. That's what I did. That's why I do the easy one first. Yeah, and then I'll just you know.
Yep. So there's this website called Unsplash. Yeah, I just go to a website called Unsplash. And you can just get like random photos, like say you want to feature photos.
Oh, okay.
And you can just download them.
Now it's got a download button.
Yep, right
Oh,
there.
okay.
And then it downloads.
I've never used that.
I don't want to go back to my daughter.
So I just downloaded some random pictures.
It's really good though, but it's like, no, fuck that.
Just stuck them in my portfolio.
My daughter's doing that.
How was it? How was it?
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, because it's like, you know, it really doesn't matter what picture you have.
Yeah.
At this point, it has nothing to do. We don't have
Yep. She just actually had to do it one day. I coded it. She coded it for an hour. Like she
So,
she was 18.
I have brothers. Wow.
I think that's actually on my
Yeah.
I was having trouble with
Get
it
online and
not being
like,
able to speak out there, so
reality, like.
yeah,
so what I did was I followed this post because I knew like I wanted the beer to be at the bottom, but I didn't know how tall the dog was. So what it's called is like it's called making second stick. So I just did sticky footer CSS, and so they're like, they say like, here's two ways for you to do it. Here's one, wrapper, the wrapper push, and so they explain like how to do it. They've got like an example HTML and CSS. So they're like, here's your bare minimum, which is the body. And inside of the body, we've got a name with lots of numbers, and then that closes. And then inside of the name, we have a div. We have a div with a password, and there's nothing exactly. So that way you can have push the push the letter down. So yeah, so you say I mean, for the homework, you just do whatever you can to make it look right. Yeah, and this is a legit method, so I just did, and it works. It looks right. Like.
What was your main page? Yeah, I have to admit, I wrote basically that was it.
And do it sort of.
Yeah, yeah, I was surprised at the size of that. So it's kind of like.
fudging the way I want instead of what
So something else I did is I just picked clam colors, clam fonts.
All right, guys, let me show you the next one. So the problem with this is that you can only host one website. All right, but on a more larger scale, you will have multiple repositories. So what we can do is, let's go ahead and see if I have a repository that I can clone. No. Okay. So I'm going to quickly create a new repository. I'm going to give it a deploy GitHub test. Okay. This will deploy repo. Okay, so you see now I gave it a name, a proper name. It's not my username, it's nothing like that. Okay, it's just a repo that I'm creating. Okay, like your assignment, your activity, or anything, right? Just a repo name. So now I'm going to go ahead and clone it and do all the same stuff again. So let me go back here. So I already created this. I'm going to get this link. Okay, git clone my repository. All right, let me go in. So I'm inside my repository now. All right, let me go ahead and create a index.html file. Okay, I created index.html. Right. Let's go to Visual Studio, and here's my website. Same thing. I'm just going to add a h1 tag. I'm going to say this is individual repo test. Okay. So make sure it shows up. Not this one. Okay, so a new web page looks good. I'm going to go ahead and now push this to my repository. So I'm going to do git add space dot. All right. Next is git commit -m. Okay, and then git push. Okay, still the same number of steps. Let's go back to GitHub. Make sure our website now should have index.html. Okay, exact same steps. I don't have to worry about my username or anything about creating a repository. All right, now this is the tricky step. All right, we're going to go into settings and then scroll down. You will see a tab, section called GitHub pages. All right, in this you are going to select master branch. All right, what this is saying is I have an individual repository. I want to host it, but you have to select a branch. Remember from GitHub, so usually it is always master branch. So you select master branch. And why is it master branch? Because all our production ready, that is good to go code will always reside in our master branch. All right. So you select drop down master branch and then save. Once you save it, you will see a new pop-up coming up. It will say your site is ready to be published. All right, it gives you a link. Oh, come on. Okay, let me. All right, so you see the link is kind of similar, but I never created this github.io. All right, I just created this folder, this new repo. So this is how the link works. Now it is tying it to your user ID. All right, and then you can add a repository. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to copy this link, go back here, paste, and then our file was index.html, and there it is. Okay, and this helps with individual repositories. As Bree was saying, the previous step only you can host one. all right, because it's tied to a username. This way, you can have multiple repositories, and each will have a different name / index.html. Okay. Again, the steps were same steps. Go back. Where's my GitHub? Okay, create a new repository. Give it any name, any repository name that you like. Okay, and then add some files. Make sure everything is good. Then go into settings. Scroll down, and you will see a section called GitHub Pages. And over here, you will select master branch. Okay, save it. It will give you the link, and then add index.html towards that, and it should be good. Okay. All right, give it a try. So you should already have an existing repo. You can just, all you have to do go into settings and change it to master branch. Any existing repo will work. All right, you don't even have to create a new one. Yours is grayed out. Do you have a? Yeah. So you have to go to the main repo. Go to your main repo, and then you will see settings. Okay, go to your main repo, settings. No, just do master branch. We don't have a docs folder. Again, if you're interested, you can have a docs folder, and it will reload the docs. It's mostly for like APIs, like what your API does. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you don't even have to create a new one. You can use the one that already exists. Not the IO one. Try something different. You have another one in your repo? Any class activity. Anything that has HTML, CSS, one of those. Or both.
So do we always want them to be saved?
Yes, that's the only option. And the reason I was saying is when you're uploading a website like a production ready website, your master branch will always have the production code. In real life, you will create multiple branches, but eventually everything should be merged to master. That's why they only have one option. Right? Again, this is a free thing that GitHub is giving us, so they're kind of limited options. When you get to Heroku, you will see you will have more options, but for now, GitHub Pages, this should work. Again, for your next week assignment, if you want, you can try this. If not, it's okay, but for your responsive one, we'll have to submit this. Okay? All right, so give it a try. This is the last activity of the day, I think. Let me see. Yeah, this should be it. So if you're done, I'm here until 10 for class hours. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll be looking at more CSS and Bootstrap.